Steven Spielberg's Disclosure Day is pure cinema. Mwah. Hi gorgeous, my name is Sabrina and welcome to my channel. For today's video, we're going to be talking about Disclosure Day and how it's pure cinema. Now, I know people are not rocking with this movie, but honestly, I don't care. I love movies and I love movies that make me think about them considerably. This movie isn't perfect by any means as it has its own discrepancies, many of them in fact, but I do love and appreciate its dedication to its messaging of faith, leadership, and unwarranted violence. Disclosure Day stars Josh O'Connor as Daniel, who works in cybersecurity to protect an artifact which harbors end-of-the-world classified information. The movie starts with Daniel being extorted for his black book bag by an organization because he stole the artifact he was hired to protect. He feels like the world should know what has been hidden from them on these hard drives that has years worth of evidence built on them because what he knows and saw is mortifying. He and a few others from the organization have gone rogue and are being led by a man called Hugo, played by Coleman Domingo. Hugo also believes the world should know the truth and decides to start by building a childhood home. And yes, he has time for this apparently. It also stars Emily Blunt as Margaret, who is a meteorologist that has a special ability to know everything about someone just by looking at them in the eyes. Margaret can also appear as someone's deceased loved one with that knowledge, but only the person affected can see her as their loved one. Margaret will continue to appear as herself to others. Both Daniel and Margaret were chosen by extraterrestrial beings to carry special gifts and to be used as passengers to deliver a message to Earth about their existence, abuse they've suffered, and what that means going forward in the world. Let's get into it. Faith. In the movie, Daniel has a girlfriend named Jane. Now, Jane represents the more religious aspect of the movie, whereas the other characters represent a more introspective outlook on the world. Now, Jane used to be a Catholic. She also used to be a former nun. Much to Daniel's dismay, he was not too pleased to know that she kept this secret from him when he is harboring a major secret about the US government, quite literally harboring extraterrestrial beings. But the movie never really addresses why he's upset. It's mostly just that she kept it from him, but I don't feel like the two were on par with each other, but that's neither here nor there. With that said, I've noticed a recent pattern in the media where they have utilized religion as a means to communicate the plot. And I feel like that has everything to do with the rise of conservatism. But at least this movie explores deeper and it actually touches on the relationship between God and divine beings. So essentially, we are God's greatest creation on earth. But there are other divine beings and divine creatures outside of us in the universe. This is discussed through Jane, who tells Daniel she stopped being a nun because she lost her faith. But her former head nun insists that Jane hasn't lost her faith in God, she has lost her faith in people. Now, I'm not a religious person, I'm a spiritual person. I'm not here to decipher whether religion should exist or not. I am just simply here to explain the misuse of religion. I feel like whether you believe in astrology, you believe in spirituality, you believe in religion, whatever it is that you appeal to, that you partake in, that those should be viewed as tools and they should be used as tools. They should be used as a means to guide you through life, not to fix your problems or your outlook on it. And I believe Jane's loss in faith should be honored as it is because it is perfectly normal to question and to consider what you've been taught. Humans are always looking for reasonings when things go wrong. And what I was able to take from this message is that we're incapable of viewing life as it is. Jane felt like God was the reason for why humans lacked empathy and why they were causing mass hysteria. When in reality, humans are incredibly selfish creatures. We're not perfect and we're always looking to blame other people for why we aren't. Cruelty is a symptom of a broken system, or it could be innate as we look at nature and we see the brutality exhibited there. Maybe it's both. But as humans, we attach meaning to everything. We cry when we see an animal being mauled by another animal, even though that's the life cycle. And I like to think about how that translates to real life because we try to find meaning in people who are demented and who are hateful, when in actuality, that is just who they are. We must learn to accept things for what they are, or we're doomed to eternal disappointment and misery over what we believe things should be. Faith is a choice. Nothing should ever break your faith, because if you stick to what you believe in, you can never fail. And if you stick to what you believe in, you have to choose better each and every day, no matter how bad things get. Which makes me think about a human's purpose and faith. The movie touches on how Daniel and Margaret have been bestowed with special gifts from extraterrestrial beings, and I don't believe that their special gifts aligned well with their career choices. And I feel like this is a perfect detail from the movie because we see both Margaret and Daniel literally run spiritually, physically, mentally from their careers because they don't feel fulfilled in what they were doing. Which is why I believe everyone has a higher calling and you just have to pick up the phone when it rings. And not when you're ready, because truthfully, you will never be ready. It'll be when you're tired, when you're exhausted, when things in your life don't make sense that should make sense. It'll be when you finally realize that you deserve more and when you finally know your worth. I mentioned this earlier, but the movie had a quote along the lines of, "We were raised as divine beings and now we're being shown them." That's not the actual sentence, so don't quote me, but it spoke to me. There's so many people out there living a lie. I love Margaret's character because she's so relatable working as a meteorologist because she feels empty and she felt like she needed to keep moving cities to feel like she belongs somewhere. Sometimes a sense of belonging isn't a place, it's a purpose that's calling out for you. You know, when you have a consistent thought over and over and over, that's your calling. You know, when you get that voice in your head that's like, clean your room? Yeah, that voice is your purpose telling you to clean your room to make space so that you can receive information, you can receive thoughts about a purpose that's being set up for you, that's in alignment, waiting for you to actually choose it. Margaret found her purpose by literally picking up the phone for Hugo and choosing to explore the unknown, which made room for her to deliver a message to the world to create peace and unity, and in some instances, closure. Margaret's faith was unshaken. And that's what I loved about her character so much because she was going through real life things. She had a crab boyfriend who didn't believe her. She had the authorities hot on her tail, not saying everybody deals with that, but she had the authorities on her tail because they wanted to censor her speech. Now, we all can relate to censor speech because there's certain things that you can say on social media and certain things that you can't say on there that can get you blocked and banned and everything else. She also had a moral or a introspective dilemma where she's just like, I don't feel like I belong anywhere. I don't feel like my job is fulfilling me. And I feel like that's a very relatable thing that we all go through because we all just want to belong somewhere. However, there was an instance where she almost broke and it was due to her PTSD. Margaret had a backstory that the movie touched on here and there about her trauma with her dad. Her dad had Parkinson's disease and it really traumatized her as a 10-year-old to see him constantly shake and just be that severely ill. This part of the movie really touched my spirit because I have PTSD from years worth of sexual trauma. And it felt so human, so raw to see a depiction of an everyday person because I feel like social media and just the media in general only shows one side of what PTSD looks like. And yes, that's very valid and real because soldiers do have PTSD. They do have, you know, sometimes violent tendencies because of that. They do have war flashbacks, but the everyday person is completely different. After the train scene between her and Daniel, where the train literally runs over the front of the car and they're like being dragged along and an agent is shooting at them, they successfully make it into the train and there's a lot of adrenaline going. And I really love this scene because Margaret literally starts sobbing. So at first, you don't think much of it. You're just like, oh, okay, maybe she's laughing. Maybe she just got a little shaken up. But like, no, she was full on distressed, rattled. Whereas Daniel, he was like lightly shaking, like, oh my God, we almost died. But she immediately goes into this state of PTSD where she starts thinking about her father and she's just like, I'm shaking, but I can't feel my hands. So Daniel's like comforting her. He puts her hands on this vent and he's telling her that she should be calm and that he's with her and that she's safe. And that was really just hard hitting for me. I can relate as someone who would wake up at like 3 a.m. where I would look around in the dark room and now I'm just like, where am I? Who am I? And all I could do was just cry and break down because I don't know what's happening to me. Even though I'm in the safe comfort of my bedroom in my house, I'm literally shaking because I'm brought back into a space that I don't want to ever be in again. That was probably one of the most traumatic and scary nights of my life, not being in my body and feeling like I'm shaking because my body's reacting, but my mind hasn't caught up to my body. I thankfully have my partner who helped me the way Daniel helped Margaret. So that also was very accurate. And I'm so grateful to have the people that I do in my life to help me through that. You know, my PTSD is the reason why I even started YouTube, because I wanted to spread awareness, to spread joy, and to also follow my purpose of using my voice. And I'm here to tell you that you can overcome your trauma or even learn to live with it if you just stick with your faith in yourself. And if you have no community, I'm your community. And this is all that we're building, baby. So I got you. I love you. And if you're currently enjoying the video, please don't forget to hit that like button. As for my next point, leadership. Daniel is such a dynamic character. I actually loved his character. Even though he's meant to be uninteresting and boring and nerdy, I feel like Josh O'Connor really gives him such a charismatic feel, and I can't help but to love him. Daniel's also a Taurus. His birthday is May 20 of 1990. I saw it on the paperwork in the movie. So it explains a lot as to why his character is so stubborn and headstrong about what he wants to do in life and chasing after that no matter what's going on. I also think it's a testament to him being a leader and how he recognizes that he has to leave a movement that people are simply just not ready for. And I feel like the movie emphasizes this with Jane because she has a conversation with Daniel after he shows her all the information that he knows. She's literally distraught and she's like, hey, you can't share this with this world. Like, people will have a global break if they see something this severe and scary. But Daniel stuck to his guns and he's like, no, people deserve the right to know. They deserve the choice to know about what's happening in their world. And I agree. I don't feel like we need to emphasize adults by withholding information from them because it's scary. Society needs leaders like Daniel because Daniel is making a small sacrifice for the greater good of the world and for the people. And I have much respect to Daniel that even though he's putting his life on the line, Jane accidentally got swooped in it. And he apologized to her for getting swooped in it, but he also reaffirmed to her that this is something he has to do, regardless to if she swept in it or not. We're so deep into capitalism that we have no room being sold the idea of freedom. We deserve and need freedom in all forms. Now, initially, Margaret rejected all of this because she didn't want to be viewed as anyone's god. But it isn't until Hugo shows her the childhood home that he built for her of her childhood home for her to face her trauma that she realized that she needed to be there. Margaret realized the importance of her voice, the importance of her story, that she needs to be a leader, that she deserves to be a leader. And this is one of the hardest choices that someone can make, especially as an activist, because that means you're relinquishing a lot of things in your life. But she had a choice. And I love that the movie emphasizes that she has autonomy because before she entered her childhood home or the model of her childhood home, she literally says to them, I can't do it for Hugo. I can't do it for Daniel. I can't do it for all these people. I have to do it for myself because this is my real life. At the end of the day, I'm a person just like you guys and all this responsibility should be my choice. So I love that expression that she has autonomy and that everyone's autonomy is worth listening to. If you don't want to do something, you don't have to do it. But I also love that she realizes there's duality. Being an activist, do what you can because even if it's small, even if it's just spreading a bit of awareness, that is something that you're contributing to the bigger picture. This also made me think about the saying ashes to ashes, dust to dust, because Daniel says to Margaret, I know you. And the reason why he knows her is because both of them have synced up and met in the extraterrestrial plane with each other, with the aliens. And they were both given the special abilities at the same time. So it made me think about like community and how I personally believe as a spiritual person that we've all been here. And I truly believe that your community should be built on people who have known you in your previous life. Obviously, we don't have any way of knowing that, but I do feel like there's little instances where you do know that, where you just click with somebody, where someone just gets you. And I feel like your community should always just get you. I'm not saying they need to agree with everything that you say or everything that you do, but they should understand you at your core. There will be people who believe in you, who support you, who want to help you carry out your purpose. And to me, that is the most beautiful thing about life. And I believe it's so important to know how vital your voice is and the impact of stepping into your light and leading people who also want the same things that you do. As for my last point, unwarranted violence. When the government finds out about the aliens and extraterrestrial beings, their first thought was to immediately abuse and dissect them. At the end of the movie, there's a segment with a reporter who is reporting live about all the information that Margaret and Daniel have sent out in the world through the news station. It's so heartbreaking, gut-wrenching, and raw, and it almost feels real. I later realized that these intense feelings on a surface were not just me being a human and feeling that empathy about unwarranted violence against humans, not humans, and just things that simply don't deserve it. I also thought about the painful history of Black women and being experimented on wrongfully and without consent, and how much of a detriment it is to me as a Black woman, and thinking about those things possibly happening to me as I transition through life. For instance, we had Henrietta Lacks, and I implore everyone to read The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks because it talks about a black woman whose cells were stolen from her wrongfully, illegally, for research. It also makes me think of another black woman named Adriana Smith, who was considered medically deceased, but because she was pregnant, they kept her body alive, and they were experimenting and testing whether she could deliver this baby while being deceased. And it's pretty much the most disgusting and heartbreaking case that you could read because her family had no say so in how this procedure can be done, and her body was pretty much forced to deliver this baby, and there was no repercussions for this whatsoever. And it's so frustrating because this list can go on and on and on from past to present. I could sit here all day and tell you as many black women who've been experimented on, and I feel like this is reflective of how normalized violence is in our society. The messaging here is how violent humans are and how far they're willing to go, even if it's inhumane. Like, humans don't need to know everything. We don't need to find a reasoning about everything. We should just let things be, and if we had more experiences, we will feel less likely to probe things that we don't understand or that don't need to be touched. I truly feel like the aliens could be a metaphor for anybody because we understand how the American health system is. So it doesn't even have to just be black women. It can be indigenous people, it can be queer people, it can be literally anybody who is impacted by the choices that the system makes against us. And I believe this type of violence is why we're so removed from nature. The movie also has commentary on this as it talks about how aliens and extraterrestrial beings will show up as things that comfort us like animals. And it truly made me think that if we didn't take nature and animals for granted, who knows how far we could transcend as a society and as people, spiritually, mentally, and physically. As for things I didn't like about the movie, because no movie's without criticism, and I'ma always keep it real. For starters, and this is no shade to Steven Spielberg, he is a legend in his own right, I feel like this movie is outdated. It would have worked maybe before the pandemic where people had less worries in the world, but nowadays people are more so afraid of not knowing where their next meal is going to be or if we'll even have a world in the next 10 years. And I feel like this is reflected in his chase scenes. I just feel like the chase scenes were so goofy and predictable. There's a scene where literally Daniel and Jane are driving and one of the agents that's after them shoots a tire. The car starts swerving, but somehow, some way, the agent flips over and starts backing up traffic, but Daniel gets away and the car is fine. I was so confused by that. Maybe that was just like something that they missed in production, but it was little things like that that made me realize that, wait a minute, I don't think Steven Spielberg realizes that we don't want movies where there's so much plot armor anymore. I'm not saying that we can't have happy movies, but what I am saying is that if we're gonna do something cheesy, at least make it make sense. And my biggest qualm with this movie was that there were no real stakes. And I feel like we saw this especially when Margaret and Daniel were in the car and the car gets hit by the train because an agent is literally pushing the car into the train. So when the train is carrying off with the car, the both of them just don't look fearful. And I'm just like, okay, we can speed this up now because they're also being shot at by the same agent who tried to kill them, and he's missing all the shots. So once again, plot armor, and then yet again another goofy chase scene, and then yet again the scene itself just didn't make me feel fearful because I'm just like, I know that they're gonna make it. The movie's already set up for the fact that nothing can hurt them, and they will make every single scary situation just simply because they're the main characters. Like, I truly believe the beginning of the movie was so promising, like the beginning to the middle, but it's the middle to the end that I feel like drags. So instead of the movie being like 2 hours and 20 something minutes long, it definitely could have been just straight up 2 hours or even an hour and 45 minutes in my personal opinion. I also hated Margaret's boyfriend. I feel like he added nothing to the plot. He was only there to cause a disturbance. It's like that fly that keeps swarming you and you keep swatting it away until you get frustrated, and now you got to get the big boy out, the big swatter, and then pop. Yeah, he needed that. I needed him gone. Like, he was the biggest worry to me than the actual agents, because Hugo calls Margaret and tells her like, hey, you need to destroy the phone. She throws the phone out the car. He misses, running over it multiple times. Like, come on, dude. Then they make it to a safe area, which is a store. He gets on his phone. He calls the hospital to tell them that Margaret escaped and tells them where their actual location is to come pick her up. Like, I don't care if my friend is telling me something that sounds crazy. I'm like, okay, friend, period. Like, I may look at you like, But I still believe you. I'm gonna believe you. He didn't even give her a chance. Like, he intentionally went out his way to not believe Margaret that things were going wrong or that she was experiencing a phenomenon. That ticks me off. And I also feel like the getaway scene where he helps her break out the hospital, they spend so much time in the parking lot. Like, Margaret made it seem like the agents were going to be hot on their tails because she's getting dressed fast. They're in the car. They're just in the parking lot playing. Like, at that point, I'm over here. My anxiety is going because I'm thinking, oh, they're coming down. No one ever comes down. They spend at least 30 minutes there until they finally drive off to who knows where. I also hated how the movie made Margaret's trauma so minuscule because they amped it up to be such a big thing because she struggled with the fact that her dad had Parkinson's when she was a kid. And she felt this ever revolving guilt at the fact that she couldn't be around him because the shakes were traumatizing to her. But we get the biggest sin of them all, but never receiving a flashback. And it's so confusing because when Hugo builds her this childhood home to make her confront her trauma, I'm thinking, okay, she's going into the childhood home to experience that trauma so that she can break through and help these aliens. No, the trauma was essentially her meeting the aliens, but nothing about it was traumatic. She was sitting on the bed as a child. These animals came in the room because they didn't want to scare her. And then they take her to this Hansel and Gretel house, which is a reference in the movie. And they put her in this white room, lay her on the table, and then they start putting down these like stones to implement certain knowledge into her. So I was very confused by that. It was all that buildup just to not even show her trauma, even though she was literally expressing, like, I don't want to talk about this. Don't make me talk about this because it was that painful. I just didn't feel like that narratively worked for me. And I definitely feel like the movie forgot that they expressed her trauma was her dad. And they decided last minute, actually, let's focus on the aliens because the movie barely had aliens until like the very end, which were very cute, by the way. I also hated how Daniel gives Jane the artifact and she runs off with it because they end up getting captured at this hotel. So when the agents ask him, like, hey, where's the artifact? All he does is smirk. And then we don't see Jane for a long time. I'm just like, shouldn't you guys be going after Jane? Like, granted, he didn't tell them like, hey, Jane has it and where she's going. They don't ever really feel concerned about where it is after that. They just are so focused on capturing Daniel and capturing Margaret. So that narratively also didn't work for me. It didn't make any sense because she was able to just turn up later on at the end of the movie after talking to the nuns, being like, oh, does God believe in loving people outside of humans? And then they get this whole spiel going. And then when she does make it to the end, as I said, she just hands over the artifact to them with no repercussions. I'm just like, how'd you get past security? How'd you get past all these agents that got these fat guns? Like, the movie just kind of just skewed off, just killed off all the possible logic that they could have had in the movie. Like, Margaret was just able to disappear from the hospital and nobody thought, we should probably go find her. No. The boyfriend was able to just call and be like, hey, yeah, I'm with Margaret. She snuck out, even though she's with him. Doesn't make any sense. She snuck out. Here, come get us. And then the movie never talks about whether they came to get her or not. Because Margaret takes off and the boyfriend's stuck at the gas station store. So it's just I just feel like the movie just got so lazy towards the middle to the end at that point. Like, it just started abandoning all the rules that were there. These are essential things that you should have in a movie. My dad also noticed how certain scenes Jane had her cuts, then she didn't have her cuts. And I feel like the movie had little details like that. And granted, these are little nitpicky things. They really don't matter to the greater scheme. But it just kind of ruined the immersion when you notice, like, something that is presented to be very serious is now unserious. Overall, I thought this was a great movie, even though I don't like sci-fi movies whatsoever. But what I do believe made it pure cinema for me is how much of it I could see in myself and for the important messaging that we currently need given the current state of the world. I believe if you look at the movie from a surface level, then it won't be the best, but if you actually take it and internalize it, it'll at least give you a fresh perspective or at least validate the things that you've already been thinking about. And at the very least, I feel like Steven Spielberg nails Disclosure Day with how much it challenges you to think introspectively. I give it an 8, truthfully, because it's nothing spectacular or great. I truly believe that the movie at its core was generic and predictable, and the plot itself didn't inspire anything new. Please like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more reviews. And if you want to continue watching more of my movie reviews, please click the video on the screen or the movie playlist. Thank you for watching, gorgeous. Bye!